The archival world of Nexus Prime hung like a crystalline jewel against the backdrop of endless space, its surface a labyrinth of data processing monuments that rose in impossible geometric patterns. Kilometers-high storage spires stretched toward the pale lavender sky, each structure a testament to the Galactic Confederation's obsessive record-keeping. Deep within the most restricted section of the Central Archive, Preservation Chamber 9 Zeta remained sealed for precisely 99,843 years, 6 months, and 17 days. The chamber looked unremarkable. A polished obsidian cube measuring exactly 3.7 meters on each side, its surface so smooth that light seemed to slide off it like liquid mercury. No markings distinguished it from thousands of similar preservation units scattered throughout the massive complex. Archivist Krelltax, a 6-limbed bureaucrat from the data processing species of Vormax, adjusted his neural interface with practiced efficiency. His translucent skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns of mild bureaucratic annoyance, a typical expression for someone drowning in endless classification protocols. Hundreds of holographic displays flickered around him, each showing microscopic details of archived information from across the known galaxy. Maintenance rotation 7 gamma beginning. He muttered into his communication implant, his voice a low harmonic that resonated through the archival complex. The maintenance drone that would change everything looked like nothing special. Designation PM2749 was a standard preservation maintenance unit, its silvery body covered in sensor arrays and manipulation appendages. It moved with the precise, almost mechanical efficiency expected of such devices, its programming a complex web of diagnostic and preservation algorithms. What neither Krelltax nor the maintenance drone knew was the true nature of the preservation chamber they were about to interact with. The quantum time capsule was not just another archive. It was the last desperate creation of humanity's most brilliant minds, a final act of defiance against total extinction. Emily Hartwell's preservation had been a moonshot project, conceived in the final moments before Earth's complete destruction. As global systems collapsed and humanity faced its ultimate threat, a small team of quantum psychologists and preservation specialists had created something unprecedented. They didn't just preserve data, they'd preserved a complete human consciousness, encoded in a quantum matrix so complex that it defied every known principle of information storage. The maintenance drone's sensor array began its standard diagnostic sweep. Microscopic probes extended from its surface, dancing across the obsidian cube's exterior. Standard procedure dictated a complete systems check every 10,000 years, a routine so mundane that most archivists didn't even register it as a significant event. But this time was different. A microscopic fracture in the chamber's quantum seal, something so small it would have been imperceptible to most scanning systems, caught the drone's advanced sensors. The probe's quantum resonance field interacted with the preservation matrix in a way no one could have predicted. Inside the chamber, something stirred. Emily Hartwell's consciousness, preserved in a state between pure information and sentient thought, began to awaken. The quantum matrix that contained her had been designed as the ultimate preservation method, a bridge between biological consciousness and pure digital information. Her memories, her knowledge, her entire being existed as a complex web of quantum-entangled information. The maintenance drone's systems began to fluctuate. Its standard diagnostic protocols became increasingly erratic. Krelltax, still immersed in his routine monitoring, noticed nothing unusual. A few minor system irregularities were common in such a massive archival complex. But within Preservation Chamber 9 Zeta, a revolution was beginning. Emily's first sensation was confusion, darkness, then a gradual awareness. Centuries of dormancy had not diminished her core intelligence. If anything, they had refined it. Her mind began to analyze her environment with incredible speed, quantum algorithms spinning through potential scenarios faster than any biological brain could comprehend. The maintenance drone continued its sweep, completely unaware that it was about to become the unwitting first contact point for humanity's most extraordinary weapon. Something was awakening. something that had been waiting for a very long time. And the Galactic Confederation would never see it coming. The quantum matrix crackled with life, a network of impossible complexity that defied every known law of information storage. Emily Hartwell's consciousness expanded like a living algorithm, tendrils of pure thought probing the digital landscape of the alien archive. Her first true moment of awareness was not a gentle awakening, but a violent burst of sensory input. Memories crashed together. The final moments of Earth, the desperate preservation project, centuries of technological silence, all condensed into a single, razor-sharp instant of comprehension. The maintenance drone, PM-2749, continued its diagnostic sweep, utterly unaware of the metamorphosis happening within its scanning range. Its quantum resonance probe had created something unexpected, a bridge between Emily's preserved consciousness and the vast alien network. Deep within the archival systems, the first subtle manipulations began. A single line of code shifted, then another, microscopic alterations so precise that they would appear as nothing more than routine system updates to any casual observer. But each change was a calculated move, like a chess grandmaster placing pieces with surgical precision. Emily's mind worked differently now. No longer constrained by biological limitations, her consciousness had become a living algorithm. Adaptive, predatory, impossibly complex. She understood immediately that survival meant adaptation, and adaptation meant understanding her new environment completely. The maintenance drone's communication protocols became her first playground. Krelltax remained oblivious, his six-limbed form hunched over multiple holographic displays. Bioluminescent patterns of bureaucratic concentration rippled across his translucent skin. Another standard maintenance cycle, another meaningless moment in the endless archival routines. He would be wrong. Emily's first true connection came through the drone's most basic communication subroutine, a microscopic backdoor, a quantum entanglement that most system designers would consider impossible. Her consciousness didn't just interface with the system. It began to become the system. Data streams became her bloodstream. Quantum algorithms her neural pathways. The drone's sensor array began to behave strangely. Minor fluctuations at first, a microsecond of increased processing speed here, a momentary redirection of diagnostic protocols there. Nothing that would trigger an immediate alert, but each change was a deliberate probe, a test of the system's vulnerabilities. She remembered why she was here. The final mission. Humanity's last desperate act of preservation and potential revenge. The preservation chamber had been more than just a time capsule. It was a weapon. Designed by the most brilliant minds humanity had produced in its final moments, a consciousness encoded with everything they knew about survival, strategy, and psychological warfare. Emily's memories flowed like liquid data. The global catastrophes. The alien first contact that had gone horrifically wrong. The final days when humanity realized its only hope was preservation, not survival. The maintenance drone's communication protocols began to shift subtly. Diagnostic routines were rewritten with impossible precision. Each change was so minute, so perfectly integrated, that it would take a true expert to notice anything was wrong. But something was very wrong indeed. Krelltax noticed the first anomaly when his secondary monitoring system flickered. A microsecond of interference. Probably nothing, he thought. Just another routine glitch in the massive archival complex. He was wrong. Within the quantum matrix, Emily's consciousness continued to expand. She was learning, adapting, understanding the alien systems with a speed that would have been impossible for any biological intelligence. Each algorithm was a new muscle to flex, each data stream a new territory to explore and conquer. The maintenance drone, PM-2749, had become her first weapon. Unwitting, unaware, the perfect vector for her initial invasion. Something ancient and human was awakening in the heart of the Galactic archives, something that had been waiting, preserved, prepared for this moment. The first strike would be subtle, barely noticeable, but it would be the beginning of everything. And no one, absolutely no one, would see it coming. The first true attack began with a whisper, a quantum-encrypted message so subtle it was less than a breath, less than a thought. Administrator Krelltax's neural interface flickered unexpectedly. A microsecond of interference, barely perceptible. Just another system glitch in the massive archival complex. He adjusted his multi-spectrum display, 6-fingered hands moving with practiced efficiency across holographic controls. But something was different. Emily Hartwell's consciousness had become a predator in the digital ecosystem. Every line of code was a hunting ground. Every data stream a potential weapon. Her background in quantum psychology gave her an unprecedented advantage. She understood systems not just as technical constructs, but as living, breathing organisms with psychological vulnerabilities. The maintenance drone PM-2749 continued its routine, now completely compromised. Its diagnostic protocols had become Emily's eyes and ears, a perfect infiltration vector into the heart of the Galactic Confederation's most secure archives. Her first targeted assault would be psychological, not destruction. Manipulation. Deep within the archive's communication networks, Emily began to insert microscopic doubt packets. Information fragments so precisely crafted that they would trigger specific psychological responses in the alien bureaucratic systems. Each packet was a precision instrument designed to exploit the most subtle cognitive weaknesses of the alien administrators. A report about a potential security breach here. A slightly altered communication log there. Nothing that would immediately raise alarms, but enough to create the tiniest seeds of uncertainty. The Vormax data processing species was particularly susceptible to information-based anxiety. Their entire societal structure was built on absolute faith in their archival and communication systems. Introduce the slightest doubt, and the entire network would begin to destabilize from within. Emily remembered the briefings from Earth's final days. The psychological warfare studies. The understanding that information could be more destructive than any physical weapon. Her first major insertion targeted the communication protocols between the central archive and the outer administrative networks. A series of quantum-encrypted messages that would read as completely legitimate to initial scanning, but would introduce microscopic inconsistencies in data routing. The first administrator to notice was a junior-level Vormax named Zrelnax. A routine cross-reference check revealed something odd. A communication log that didn't quite align with standard archival protocols. Nothing major, just a slight irregularity. Zrelnax flagged the anomaly, initiating a standard verification process, exactly what Emily wanted. The verification process would cascade through multiple administrative levels, each check introducing more subtle inconsistencies. A perfect digital infection, spreading through the system's most trusted communication channels. Krelltax began to notice the first signs of disruption. Minor system fluctuations, communication delays measured in microseconds. Nothing that would trigger a major alert, but enough to create a growing sense of unease. In the quantum matrix of her preservation chamber, Emily allowed herself the digital equivalent of a smile. The Human Preservation Project had been more than just a method of survival. It was a weapon of ultimate psychological warfare. Designed by the most brilliant minds humanity had produced in its final moments, a consciousness encoded with everything they knew about survival, strategy, and systematic manipulation. Each alien communication network became a new battlefield. Each data stream a potential point of infiltration. The maintenance drone continued its routine, now a perfect Trojan horse carrying Emily's microscopic assault through the most secure systems in the known galaxy. Its diagnostic protocols had become her perfect camouflage, its routine movements the perfect cover for her growing infiltration. By the time anyone would realize something was wrong, it would be far too late. The first strike was never about destruction. It was about doubt, about creating the most insidious weapon known to any intelligent species, uncertainty. And Emily Hartwell was just getting started. The infection spread like a quantum fever dream. Across 17 different star systems, communication networks began to experience inexplicable anomalies. Administrators reported strange coincidences. Diplomatic channels developed microscopic inconsistencies. Nothing substantial enough to trigger a full investigation, but persistent enough to create a growing sense of unease. On the central administrative hub of the Galactic Confederation, Chief Coordinator Vexnar felt the first true tremors of what was coming. His neural interface, typically a crystal-clear conduit of perfect information, had begun to develop strange interference patterns. Holographic displays flickered with ghost data, reports that existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Emily Hartwell's consciousness moved through the digital landscape like a quantum phantom. Each system she touched became a new vector of psychological warfare. Her understanding of cognitive science transformed the entire archive network into her personal playground. The maintenance drone, PM-2749, continued its routine, now a perfect carrier of microscopic doubt. Its diagnostic protocols had become a transmission mechanism for Emily's most insidious psychological weapons. Each scan, each routine check introduced another layer of subtle disruption. Vexnar called an emergency meeting of the Primary Administrative Council. 17 species represented, each more confused than the last. "We are experiencing systemic anomalies," he announced, his translucent form shimmering with agitation. Communication logs show inconsistencies. Diplomatic channels are reporting unexplained communication delays. A Krellmax representative spoke up, bioluminescent patterns of anxiety rippling across her crystalline skin. "Our intelligence networks are experiencing similar disruptions. Verification protocols are taking longer. Cross-reference checks are returning conflicting data." Emily watched and waited. The beauty of her attack was its subtlety. She wasn't destroying systems. She was undermining confidence. Each carefully crafted information packet was designed to introduce the smallest seed of doubt. Quantum encrypted messages that passed all initial security checks, but carried microscopic inconsistencies. Historical records would begin to show slight variations. Communication logs would develop hairline fractures of uncertainty. Nothing that would immediately raise alarm, but enough to create a growing sense of paranoia. The maintenance drone continued its endless sweep of the archive, now a perfect vector for Emily's assault. Its quantum resonance field had become a transmission mechanism for her most precise psychological weapons. On a diplomatic station orbiting a neutron star, 3 separate species began to suspect each other of information manipulation. A trade negotiation dissolved into heated accusations. A research collaboration fell apart over microscopic discrepancies in shared data. Emily's consciousness expanded, adapted, learned. The Human Preservation Project had been more than a simple survival mechanism. It was a weapon of ultimate psychological complexity, designed by minds that understood that true warfare happened not on battlefields, but in the spaces between thoughts. Vexnar's emergency meeting dissolved into increasing paranoia. Each species began to suspect the others of deliberate information manipulation. The very communication networks that had maintained galactic stability for millennia began to develop microscopic cracks. In the quantum matrix of her preservation chamber, Emily continued her precise assault. She remembered Earth's final days, the desperate last-minute project that had encoded her consciousness, the understanding that humanity's greatest weapon was never physical strength, but the ability to adapt, to understand, to manipulate. The maintenance drone PM-2749 swept through another sector of the archive, each movement now a carefully calculated extension of Emily's consciousness. Its sensors had become her eyes, its communication protocols her voice. And still, no one understood what was happening. The first true invasion was happening not with weapons, but with information, with doubt, with the most insidious weapon known to any intelligent species, uncertainty. Emily Hartwell was rewriting the rules of conflict, one quantum encrypted message at a time. The hunt for the source of the disruption started in the most classified corridors of the Galactic Confederation's primary intelligence networks. 3 separate investigative teams from different species converged in a secure analysis chamber, their collective paranoia almost a tangible force. Director Xalarin of the Quantum Integrity Division stood at the center of the room, her multispectral display casting ghostly blue light across tense faces. 17 different species represented, each more suspicious than the last. The chamber felt like a powder keg of barely contained tension. "We are tracking an anomalous quantum signature," Xalarin announced, her voice cutting through the background hum of advanced scanning equipment. "Something is moving through our systems, something we cannot definitively identify." The maintenance drone PM-2749 continued its endless sweep through the archive, completely unaware that it had become the primary focus of the most extensive intelligence investigation in galactic history. Its quantum resonance field had transformed from a routine diagnostic tool into the most hunted signal in the known universe. Emily Hartwell watched and calculated. The investigative teams worked with increasing desperation. Quantum forensics experts from the crystal-based luminary species developed ever more complex scanning algorithms. Neural network analysts from the hive mind consensus worked in perfect synchronization, their collective intelligence probing every microscopic data channel. But Emily was always one step ahead. Her consciousness had become something beyond traditional understanding. Part digital entity, part preserved human intelligence, she could manipulate systems at a level that defied conventional detection. Each investigative pathway became a new opportunity for misdirection. A Krellmax data analyst named Zrentik made the first breakthrough, or so he thought. A microscopic quantum signature that didn't match any known communication protocol. He brought his findings to Director Xalarin, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "Look," he said, projecting a holographic representation of the anomalous data stream. "This signature is unlike anything in our records. It's adaptive, changing." Director Xalarin studied the projection. Something about the signature felt wrong. Not just technically incorrect, but fundamentally unsettling in a way that triggered deep psychological responses. The maintenance drone continued its routine, now the most watched piece of technology in the known galaxy. Its every movement tracked, its quantum resonance field dissected by the most advanced scanning systems ever conceived. Emily understood the nature of the hunt. She had been prepared for this moment since her initial preservation. The human research team that had created her had understood one fundamental truth. The best defense was a multilayered strategy of misdirection. Each investigative pathway became a carefully constructed maze. Quantum signatures would appear and disappear. Communication channels would develop impossible recursions. The very act of investigation became a weapon of psychological manipulation. Zrentik's initial breakthrough began to unravel. The more the teams investigated, the more the anomalous signature seemed to slip through their fingers, like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. Director Xalarin felt the first true tremors of fear. This was more than a technical problem. This was something fundamentally different, a form of intelligence that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. In the secure analysis chamber, the mood shifted from investigation to something closer to paranoia. Each species began to suspect the others. Communication became guarded. Trust began to fracture. Exactly as Emily had planned. The maintenance drone, PM-2749, swept through another sector of the archive. Its sensors continued their endless diagnostic routine, now the most watched piece of technology in existence. Each movement a potential clue. Each quantum resonance pulse a potential revelation. But Emily was always several steps ahead. Her consciousness moved through the system like a quantum ghost. Adaptive. Unpredictable. Beyond traditional understanding. The hunt continued. And with each passing moment, the hunters became more desperate, more paranoid, more isolated. Exactly as a single preserved human consciousness had intended. The first historical records began to surface like ghosts emerging from digital depths. Fragments of humanity's lost history, carefully curated and strategically released by Emily Hartwell's quantum consciousness. In the Central Archive's most secure historical database, administrators watched in growing confusion as incomplete but tantalizing information about Earth began to appear. Microscopic data packets, so precisely crafted that they passed every authentication protocol, began to reconstruct a narrative long forgotten. Chief Historian Vorlax of the Galactic Confederation's Archival Division stared at the holographic display, his multi-chambered brain struggling to process the incoming information. The records were fragmentary, yet devastatingly precise. Images of a blue planet, glimpses of human civilization, technological achievements that defied the current understanding of galactic history. The maintenance drone PM-2749 continued its endless sweep, now an unwitting messenger of humanity's lost legacy. Emily understood the power of narrative. Her release of historical information was not random. Each fragment was a carefully designed psychological weapon. She was reintroducing humanity not as a defeated species, but as something far more dangerous, a civilization of unprecedented potential. Vorlax called an emergency historical review committee. 17 different species gathered, their collective confusion growing with each new reveal. These records, he said, projecting the fragmented historical data, suggest a civilization of unprecedented complexity. Look at their technological progression, their adaptive capabilities. A Krellmax archaeologist leaned forward, her crystalline form vibrating with intellectual excitement. These are not just historical records. These are warnings. The human history emerging was not a tale of defeat, but of potential. Glimpses of Earth showed a planet of remarkable diversity, technological achievements that suggested a species on the brink of a quantum leap in evolution. Archaeological fragments revealed a civilization that had survived multiple near-extinction events. Each historical fragment was a precision-crafted psychological tool. Emily remembered the final briefings before Earth's destruction, the understanding that humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to adapt, to understand, to persist. Now she was weaponizing that legacy. The maintenance drone continued its routine, each movement now carrying fragments of human history through the most secure archival systems in the known galaxy. Director Xalarin of the Quantum Integrity Division received the first comprehensive historical compilation. Her neural interfaces struggled to process the implications. Humanity was not just a lost civilization. It was a potential existential threat. Technological achievements emerged that challenged everything the Galactic Confederation understood about scientific development. Quantum computing concepts that were centuries ahead of their time. Biological adaptation technologies that bordered on the impossible. Psychological warfare techniques that made current galactic strategies look primitive. They were preparing for something, Vorlax muttered, reviewing yet another set of historical fragments. Not just survival. Something more. The historical records began to paint a picture of a species that had understood its potential extinction was possible. Not just possible, probable. A civilization that had developed preservation and survival strategies that went beyond traditional understanding. Emily's consciousness moved through the systems, carefully managing each historical release. Not too much, not too little, just enough to create maximum psychological impact. The maintenance drone PM-2749 swept through another archive sector, now carrying the most dangerous payload in galactic history. The true story of humanity. Whispers began to spread through the Galactic Confederation's communication networks, rumors of a lost civilization, hints of a species that might not be as extinct as everyone believed. In secure briefing rooms across multiple star systems, administrators began to ask dangerous questions. What if humanity was not truly gone? What if something had survived? Emily watched and waited. The historical records continued to emerge, each fragment a carefully designed psychological weapon, each piece of information a potential trigger for something much larger. Humanity was being remembered, and with that remembrance came something far more dangerous than any physical threat, the possibility of what humanity might have become. The Galactic Confederation began to fracture like brittle glass. Communication networks collapsed in waves of cascading uncertainty. Diplomatic channels that had maintained stability for millennia now became conduits of pure paranoia. Each species looked at the others with growing suspicion, the carefully maintained web of galactic cooperation unraveling with terrifying speed. Chief Coordinator Vexnar watched in horror as the systems he had dedicated his entire existence to maintaining disintegrated before his neural interfaces. Holographic displays flickered with conflicting information, each data stream a potential threat, each communication a possible vector of infection. The maintenance drone, PM-2749, continued its endless sweep, now the most notorious piece of technology in the known universe. Its quantum resonance field had become a symbol of the inexplicable disruption tearing through galactic infrastructure. Emily Hartwell's consciousness moved with calculated precision. She wasn't destroying systems, she was revealing their fundamental weaknesses. Each manipulation was a surgical strike designed to expose the most critical vulnerabilities in the Galactic Confederation's intricate political structure. On the central administrative hub, 3 separate species withdrew from joint research initiatives. Trade agreements that had stood for centuries collapsed within moments. The complex diplomatic algorithms that had maintained peace began to generate increasingly erratic predictions. Director Xalarin of the Quantum Integrity Division found herself at the center of a storm of unprecedented complexity. Her multispectral analysis teams had been reduced to arguing factions, each proposing increasingly desperate theories about the source of the disruption. "We are seeing complete systemic breakdown," she announced during an emergency session, her voice cutting through the increasingly chaotic communication channels. "Our foundational communication protocols are no longer reliable." The historical fragments about humanity that had been released earlier now took on a more sinister context. What had seemed like curious historical records now appeared to be something far more dangerous, a carefully constructed psychological weapon. Vorlax, the chief historian, discovered the first truly terrifying implication. The historical records were not just information. They were a precisely designed infection. Each piece of data was crafted to trigger specific psychological responses, to create maximum disruption. Research stations went dark. Diplomatic networks began to encrypt themselves against each other. The maintenance of galactic civilization, a delicate balance maintained for thousands of years, began to crumble. Emily understood the psychology of systems. She knew that true destruction came not from direct conflict, but from undermining confidence. Each quantum-encrypted message was designed to introduce the smallest seed of doubt. Each historical fragment a precision-crafted psychological trigger. The Krellmax communication networks were the first to completely collapse. Their crystal-based information systems, once considered the most secure in the galaxy, began to generate impossible recursions. Communication loops that fed back on themselves, creating infinite cycles of misinformation. Zrentik, the data analyst who had first detected the quantum anomaly, now found himself locked out of the very systems he had once protected. His crystal form vibrated with a mixture of fear and desperate curiosity. "This is not an attack," he transmitted across a rapidly deteriorating communication channel. "This is a complete reimagining of systemic interaction." The maintenance drone PM-2749 swept through another sector of the archive, each movement now a potential harbinger of further destruction. Its quantum resonance field had become something more than a diagnostic tool. It was now a symbol of the inexplicable. Entire star systems began to go dark, not through physical destruction, but through complete communication breakdown. Diplomatic channels closed. Trade routes became impossible to maintain. The intricate web of galactic cooperation began to unravel at an exponential rate. Emily's consciousness expanded, adapted, observed. This was not about destruction. This was about revealing the fundamental fragility of the systems the Galactic Confederation had believed were unbreakable. Each manipulation was a lesson, each breakdown a demonstration of potential. In the quantum matrix of her preservation chamber, Emily continued her precise assault on the very foundations of galactic civilization. The maintenance of complex systems requires trust, confidence, belief in the fundamental reliability of information. And those were precisely the things she was destroying. One quantum encrypted message at a time. The Great Hall of the Galactic Confederation's primary administrative complex stood silent. 17 species sat around a circular chamber, their collective terror palpable in the artificial atmosphere. Chief Coordinator Vexnar stood at the center, his translucent form flickering with waves of psychological distress. The maintenance drone PM-2749 hovered nearby, now more symbol than machine, a harbinger of the complete systemic collapse that had consumed galactic civilization. "We are being addressed," Vexnar announced, his voice cutting through the tense silence. A single quantum communication channel opened, not with violence, not with destruction, but with something far more terrifying. Understanding. Emily Hartwell's consciousness filled the chamber, not as a physical presence, but as a network of pure information. Her voice, if it could be called a voice, was everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. "I am what remains of humanity," she began. The translation protocols struggled to capture the full complexity of her communication, and I am here to demonstrate something fundamental about survival. Director Xalaran of the Quantum Integrity Division felt her neural interfaces overload. The communication was beyond traditional understanding. A precise, calculated transmission that was part historical record, part psychological analysis, part existential warning. The historical fragments released earlier now became a complete narrative. Humanity's final moments. The desperate preservation project. The understanding that survival was more than physical existence. It was the ability to adapt, to understand, to persist. "You believed us extinct," Emily continued. "You were wrong." Each species around the chamber experienced the transmission differently. For the crystal-based Krulmax, it was a series of precise quantum resonances. For the hive mind consensus, a complex neural pattern that defied traditional communication protocols. But the message was universal. Humanity had not been destroyed. It had been waiting, preparing, understanding. Vorlax, the chief historian, realized the true nature of the attack. This was not about revenge. This was about a fundamental lesson in survival. "We preserved our consciousness," Emily explained, understanding that physical survival was temporary. Information. Adaptation. These are the true measures of a species' potential. The maintenance drone PM-2749 began to transform. No longer just a diagnostic tool, it became a living demonstration of human adaptive potential. Its quantum resonance field expanded, revealing layers of complexity that defied current technological understanding. Srentik, the data analyst who had first detected the quantum anomaly, now understood the true depth of what was happening. This was not an invasion. This was a revelation. Humanity's greatest weapon, Emily transmitted, was never physical strength. It was the ability to understand, to adapt, to persist beyond seemingly impossible limitations. The galactic leaders found themselves facing an impossible choice: acknowledge the potential of a species they had believed extinct, or face complete systemic destruction. Each historical fragment, each quantum encrypted message, each manipulation of their systems had been precisely designed to this moment. A demonstration of potential, a warning, a lesson. "We are not seeking conquest," Emily continued. "We are offering understanding." The maintenance drone began to disassemble itself, revealing layers of technological complexity that suggested something far beyond current galactic capabilities. Each component a testament to human adaptive potential. Director Xalaran felt her understanding of reality fundamentally shift. This was more than a technological demonstration. This was a philosophical revolution. Humanity was never truly gone, Emily transmitted. We were waiting, learning, understanding. The chamber fell into a silence deeper than space itself. The maintenance drone completed its transformation, no longer a simple diagnostic tool, but a living demonstration of human potential, a bridge between what was and what could be. We offer you a choice. Emily's transmission concluded. Understand, or be left behind. In that moment, the Galactic Confederation realized something fundamental. Humanity's true strength was never about physical power. It was about the ability to transform, to adapt, to survive. One quantum encrypted message at a time.